Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Barry Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Have one of my sponsors on today, and Michael Connort of Vizsla Silver. And Vizsla Silver is what I refer to as a silver unicorn. We hear the term unicorn a lot in the technology stocks. We don't often hear that used in the mining stocks, especially in the precious metals. And in Vizsla Silver, I have several reasons why I think it's a unicorn. And Michael and I are going to talk about that today. So thanks for joining us, Michael.
Well, thanks, Alan. It's always great to connect with you, and looking forward to a discussion here today.
So some of the reasons that I think of Vizsla Silver as a silver unicorn are you can look at the stock is currently trading at record highs. And these days, that's very unusual for a development company. The big cap stocks, the major mining stocks, they've reacted very well to the price of gold and silver, and but not really the junior miners or the developers. So that's one reason. Another is that the tremendous internal rate of return on your Panuco project, using current prices, it is well into the triple digits of IRR. That's unusual for my entire career. Another thing is the low capex to build the mine. And finally, the rapid payback in a matter of less than 6 months. So let's delve into some of those reasons for why I think you guys are a unicorn for a silver developer and explorer.
Well, and I'll add kind of one more point, or to your first point about the all-time highs. We're officially now a billion-dollar plus company, and from a startup that a lot of times that's what they refer these unicorns as. Something that's gone from very small startup to now a billion-dollar Canadian market cap, which is great. I think it's just a stop along the way for us. We have a lot of very important milestones this year that'll add to the other points that you talked about. So, we have this project that at the PEA level, which was a very thorough PEA, is demonstrating incredible economics and, like you said, industry leading economics that I haven't seen before in my career either. So we're very fortunate that this district that we have contains very high grades of mineralization, very thick veins in Mexico. And the combination of that plus the infrastructure means that we have today's price is well north of $1.5 billion NPV, triple digit IRR, capex that's 224 million, and likely less than 6 month payback at current prices. So it's really incredible for a very large scale silver project. It's almost unheard of as well.
Yeah, I mean, in the development stages, to have $1 billion valuation is quite an achievement, and especially in sort of the market environment these days, and just speaks volumes to the quality of the project. Another thing that I find quite interesting, Mike, is that a lot of times when you have a development project, a lot of those start with $1 billion plus development costs these days, and it's very rare to see a company trading with such a significant amount of the capex already sitting in cash in your company, and you trading at multiples to the capex. So, a lot of times the developers, they need a bigger partner because it's just too big for them to do on their own. But you guys have that ability in spades.
Yeah, and that's what's really special. And it's something that we set out early to ensure that we would find a project and scope a project such that we could take it on ourselves. And we look at Panuco and our district here as very much a generational project. And, a lot of times, let's say this was in the hands of a Mexican mining family 100 years ago. These are the type of projects that, create these dynasties in Mexico. And of course, we consolidated. We brought a lot of these property package pieces together, and it had never been consolidated before. So by doing that, we unlocked the ability to move this forward very rapidly into production and utilize that great infrastructure that we have. But for us to have a capex that's largely funded by the cash we have on hand, and of course we've been working on term sheets for project funding that I think we'll be able to announce later this year. We'll be able to show that very quickly that we'll be able to build this ourselves. And it's not only the cash that's important. I think the reason that we have the access to this type of funding is in large part due to our team too. And Simon Smirlik, who is our chief operating officer, is really second to none in my opinion in terms of mine building. He's built 40 plus mines in his career, and recently he was involved in the build of Las Chispas for Silvercrest through his role at Ausenco. And he left Ausenco to join Vizsla. And when we talk about this internally, we talk about building project number one, and that project number one unlocking the development of the rest of this district. And we recently acquired the Santa Fe project, which is another potential center of mass. So our vision is to build this into the next major silver mining company. And having such an accessible and approachable capex really unlocks that value for us early on.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Silvercrest and Las Chispas and Simon, because they pulled off a pretty incredible feat in that when I started reporting on the company quite early, and when they were building that, they were going through a significant amount of inflation and also the COVID situation. And they were able to bring that mine online on budget, on time. And I really think that speaks volumes to Simon's talents. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but this environment has to be like a walk in the park for him.
Well, he's seen a lot, over the years. So it takes a lot to face Simon. And our leadership team has benefited from his experience and yes, operating in those types of environments, but also the ability to kind of help manage those types of crises, that certainly occur during the development of mines. So, with that type of experience and steady hand in production, this probably is a bit of a walk in the park for him.
But it's not just Simon. You've also got super talented people right across the board, including in Mexico.
That's true. Our team, Fernando Martinez, our VP of projects, and our director of Mexico, Hernando Riuda, has done an incredible job of unlocking the project and the value of the project on the local scale. And, the team goes much further beyond him and Simon and those other two. Our whole team is really quite incredible. And it's great to see, when you have a project like this, it's great to see the team rally around this and feel that ownership. And one of our core values is extreme ownership. And I've definitely seen that where members of our team really own this like it's their own business, and certainly are exposed to the upside through equity and things like that. But it brings in this sense of kind of drive and community that I haven't seen really elsewhere in my career.
That I've lived down in Mexico for 10 years now. And when I came down here, it was to be involved with projects that the guy who ran the Geological Survey of Mexico for 30 years was involved with. And so I really know how important it is to have that Mexican uh, team. And you've got a really tremendous team down in Mexico. And, it opens up doors when it comes to the politicians, to the mining people, to the permitting people, to the legal, to the local. It's really crucial, and your team down here in Mexico is doing a heck of a job.
Yeah, well, they are, and we certainly appreciate it.
Right. And so, what are some of the near-term catalysts that you're working on these days, Michael? I want to get into the part about adding projects, but because I like that business strategy, and I'll talk about it later. But near-term catalysts, what are you guys working on?
Probably the most important things that we're working on this year have to do with de-risking and developing project number one, which is the area that's covered in the PEA. So from the PEA, we're driving the project through into the feasibility study stage here, and we expect the feasibility to be published later this year. I often say before Christmas, but we want to give ourselves a lot of room to make sure that it's done properly and with the right amount of attention. And you can get to the 99th percentage completed there and find out that there's something that you can tweak, go back a little bit, and it can increase and improve the economics. So we don't want to box ourselves in terms of timing, but there's the potential for it to be much sooner than before Christmas, but certainly this year. That feasibility study will unlock a lot of value for us. Primarily, it'll give us the blueprint to break ground and to develop and enter into construction. But a very important part of that is to be fully funded. So as part of the feasibility process, we are involving groups that can help us fund this, and so we expect to secure project finance this year as well, possibly in conjunction with that feasibility study. We started with a really big universe of potential lenders and financing partners. Today, we've shortlisted that to a very small list, and basically we're going through now and finding the right option for us. So that's a very important step for us this
Well,
year.
yeah, because it doesn't look like it's going to be too onerous when you've already got a big chunk of the cash. So you can look at really good options that are favorable in terms for Vizsla.
Exactly. And the way that we look at it is return for equity shareholders. We need to make sure that shareholders are seeing the best return out of our options here. And we're fortunate because we do have options. A lot of times companies might just be cornered into to one option really. And so we've been able to be selective, take our time, and I think we'll have some positive news on that this year. And one of the other really important things in terms of de-risking project number one, and I'll talk about, how we're hunting for project number two as well. But in terms of de-risking project number one is the test mine, and the test mine we've started at the underground now. We're well progressed in the underground. We put in a really nice 70 by 70 box cut, and we're driving now at 5.5 by 5.5 the decline. So it's really that is a huge de-risking tool for us, and it's something that's reminiscent of Silvercrest as well. And the reason that we're so focused on developing the underground and doing the test mine is that it decouples the risk of the startup of the mine from the startup of the mill, and
Because
invariably
you
things go wrong.
you load up material that's ready for when you do build the mill, but you're also getting underground, which will be used in the larger once you get the permitting and start mining.
Exactly. And we were permitted for the test mine, last year, and so we've been able to start it this year. But it also allows us to not only test, the mine, but of course test the contractors to get access to mineralization, to bring that mineralization above surface. And then, when we start up the mill, we're not trying to run two separate operations for the very first time. We'll be comfortable at the underground and the mill. We can focus on that and bringing that material through for processing. So it's really exciting. It's a true mining operation there at the project now, and kind of a glimpse of what's to come in the future.
And so now you're another big event is you're working on the permitting. And I keep a close ear to to the ground on how permitting is progressing. And it sounds like in June or July, the President Scheinbaum and her administration are planning to put out some good details about how things are going to progress going forward. I mean, personally, I'm not too worried about getting a permit for an underground operation in Mexico. That's what makes up all the mines down here in Mexico. They have a lot of experience with that. What's your ear to the ground on that front, Michael?
Well, I agree, and I have heard that there's been smaller private operations even within our region, let's say of Mexico. I shouldn't give too many details, but I do know that there's been a full MIA granted for something that's very, very similar to what we have, which would include an underground, a mill, and tailings. So we are seeing that flow from Seminat. We're also seeing a lot of really good interactions between the government of Mexico and the mining community, and Camimex and the chambers there are doing a great job of representing miners to the new government. But what's really important is, I think, this is a big step change from what we saw under AMLO. The level of interaction is completely different. And I suspect that we'll start to see permits flow relatively soon on a larger scale, let's say. For us, it's been interesting to know that the government of Mexico, that Seminat actually is familiar with our project, and they look at it as it's a continuation of the hundreds of years of mining history rather than a fresh new build. Of course, this is a district that dates back to the Spanish. There's been mining pretty much consistently since then. And we're now the stewards of this property, and we've been doing a lot of excellent work in terms of community relations, in terms of our nursery. We have a nursery where we're germinating plants local to this area of Sinaloa, probably for the first time. And over the years, we've been planting these smaller trees where we've made disturbances for drilling and that type of thing. So I think that the government recognizes that we're excellent stewards of this ground, and we're really looking forward to creating a very large and long lasting economic benefit to this region as well. That a region that really needs it in Mexico.
Well, you're following in good footsteps because I know some people that work for a major mining company in Mexico doing exactly what you're talking about regarding helping the locals with their farming and plant growing and stuff like that. And it's amazing how far and wide the word of that kind of stuff gets spread. I know the a lady that's in charge of that for a major mining company here in Mexico, and it's amazing how they hear about this far and wide very rapidly.
One of the important things that we've done as well on that front, something that I'm quite proud of, is our partnership with the Venados, the baseball team. So we started, I believe it's been about a year now that we've started that partnership, and where we used to get about 400 people to our health fairs, we now start to get about 800 and 900 people showing up to the health fairs because we partnered with that local baseball team. And so that's been a great way for us to kind of, I don't want to say leverage, another group's reputation, but it's kind of a bit of a brand identity for that part of Sinaloa, and because of that, we've been able to kind of amplify our impact in the communities, which has been great. And it's even after the Mardi Gras and the Holy Week and everything in Mazatlan on the beach, we had our team go down and clean up and that type of work. So we're in the community, and I do think that has an impact and is seen favorably as well. But it's certainly
It's
something we do
tremendous,
because we're it's part of
Michael.
our
It's
yeah.
tremendous because those people, they have relatives all over Mexico, Mexico City, Mazatlan, and word gets around like really rapidly about how, how great a work a Canadian mining company is doing in Mexico. But you also um, have a significant economic benefit, even at the stage you're at in Sinaloa. You're in the very southern end of Sinaloa, not near the border and up north, but you guys are already an important part of the Sinaloa economy.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have been now for 6 years. We started in late 2019, and we've invested well over $100 million US into the community, and through our exploration work and employment, and direct investment into the Panuco project. So it has been a very important part of what's happening there. And of course, we've been able to make great connections and relationships with the Secretary of Economy, which considers this project to be one of the very most important infrastructure and development projects in the region. So we're fortunate, and I think it's been great too since I first started going down to the project in early 2019 to see how these small communities that we're working around benefited as well. So it's great, and I mentioned the feasibility study, the financing, test mine. Those are all things that we can control, and in a large part at least control, and be a part of the success there. The one thing that's holding us back, of course, is just the permit. So I think all of this hard work that we've done over the years, and the fact that we've located our areas of disturbance on previously disturbed land that we've selected for part of the permitting process. I think that means that we should receive a permit relatively soon here, and I'm very optimistic about the outcome there. I think for Mexico or for Sinaloa to see what the opportunity is to have Vizsla producing there, I think they can understand the huge benefit. So I suspect that permits should come in a relative short time frame.
I agree with you because I know how these things sort of snowball, and when you have the locals really happy. For example, one of the projects I was involved with, the local community couldn't get clean drinking water for a number of years, and I found out how much the pump cost. I got it built, put in there, and now that community has clean drinking water. And I know how it kind of, when you have the local support, it makes its way to the state. And when you have the state support, it makes its way to the national government. And and then you're also, like you said, working on already disturbed ground, and it's an underground mine, which is what makes up the mining industry here in Mexico for the most
What
part.
one of the things that Simon likes to say about this project, it'll be one of those mines that no one will really see or hear or have negative impacts from, but they'll experience the economic benefit, and that's been a big part of how we've uh, you know gone about forming the plan for the mine. So the mill sits kind of on a small plateau, but it's kind of tucked away behind some topography so that the town actually won't be able to see it. And the dust, and we've done seismic tests and things like that. It should be well out of sight from both the highway and the town. So it's part of our philosophy there, and it's something that's pretty exciting.
Well, you have a spectacular project, a really powerful, strong team that knows how to build mines. You're in a very unique situation, which is why I call it a silver unicorn. But looking out a little bit farther, we touched on some of your business plan. And of course, one of the key parts of your business plan is building the mine, the first mine. You have the potential to find second or third mines on that Panuco project, but you're also starting to spread out in the region and get other key projects. Some of them remind me a lot of the early days of Panuco. Why don't you touch on that a little bit? Because I think that business plan is really important, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're very aware that this is I mean, we have the original property, which is the what we call the Panuco Copala district, which we consolidated for the first time in 2019. And then since then we've continued to expand originally it was kind of peripheral to the original district and filling in gaps that we didn't own. Um, but last year we ended up tripling our land package from that original one. So we bought Bagara to the north, which, and I should back up and just say, Panuco, we believe will be a billion ounce district. And the reason we believe that is because it's very much an analog to San Dimas, which is 80 kilometers to the north. We bought Lagara, which sits equidistant between San Dimas and Panuco, and I think it has the hallmarks of something that could very well be one of these 500 million to a billion ounce districts. Same hallmarks as San Dimas, same hallmarks as Panuco. And then we bought San Enrique to the south, a 10,000 hectare block of ground to the south of our original district, where all of those main structural controls run onto. So everything that we see from our Panuco district runs onto San Enrique. And then more recently, within the last few weeks, we've expanded that even further by acquiring another 10,000 hectare block further south from San Enrique, which actually has an operating mine on it and has those similar hallmarks and structural controls that we see, throughout this region. So we've been at a time where there has been arguably poorer sentiment towards Mexico. We've been amassing a very large land package there that I think in the end could also host, upwards of multiples of billions of ounces of silver equivalent. And we've been able to do that through our competitive advantage and all these things that we talked about, where the local vendor groups have actually taken shares in Vizsla because they want a part of what we're building here. So for me, the future is extremely exciting to think about going from project number one to perhaps project number two at Santa Fe. If we can make that critical mass of discovery at Santa Fe, we can then grow the mill. We can add another perhaps 7 to 10 million ounces of annual production at Santa Fe. We made a new discovery at the Animas vein, and that eastern part of the original Panuco district is looking like it could grow into a center of mass where you build another mill. And then, of course, Lagara could be something very, very special as well. So, our vision is by the end of, 10-year vision is to build a 50 million ounce silver equivalent producer from the map that we have so far.
Well, we need more junior miners that want to grow into mid-tiers and beyond. And because there's so few of them because of the takeovers in the past. And if you want to do that in silver, all roads lead to Mexico. And when you describe all of that, it's like building the foundation of a mid-tier to major silver producer. And there's not many options like that. And if silver starts going crazy, which I think it will, investors that want exposure just don't have a lot of opportunities.
Exactly. And what we're seeing now is a scarcity value being assigned to Vizsla as well, because we saw Meg, Silvercrest, and Gatos go in the last 12 months at cash flow multiples and NAV multiples, eye-wateringly higher than what we have here. And, we trade today at about half of NAV on a PNAV basis. And as an average, those peers traded hands at 1.8 times NAV. So there's a more than 3 times multiple in terms of NAV valuation from where we are today, just by going through those phases that I mentioned earlier, which is a feasibility study, permitting, and into production. We'll see a very severe re-rating of Vizsla Silver. And what's important as well is that we've tried to remove all the hurdles possible for investors to buy shares in Vizsla by listing on the premier exchanges in the US and Canada.
Well, when I look at projects, I'm not really an accountant, so I don't really use those accounting things to bring back what's happening in the future to today. What I do look at is what's it going to cost you to build it, which is really cheap compared to your cash position and your price of your stock, and the IRR and the ability to pay that back in a matter of a handful of months. That is, something that I've not seen very many times in my career in the mining business over the last 30 years. So I think all of those things we talked about, Michael, makes the case of why Vizsla could be that silver unicorn.
I agree. Absolutely. I think we're on our way, but there's much more to come.
Well, and as a sponsor, we'll keep talking about it in these interviews, Michael. And you have any closing comments, or did we cover a good amount today?
I think we did a good job, but if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us at Vizsla Silver. We love to talk to shareholders and potential investors.
As always, folks, it's important for you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisors. Bear in mind that the company is a sponsor, which means that I'm able to do these regular reports. And I'm really proud to have a company like Vizsla because I believe that as we do these future interviews, you're going to see this company grow into a silver unicorn, and those are really rare these days. And but those are my biases. But do your own homework so you can have your own biases. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.